Hey, how's it going guys? Zuko here, and welcome to the December edition of the Preorder Roundup, where we're going to be talking about the newest anime figures that you may or may not want to add to your collection. Now, I do have a few things I need to say before we get started, but if you don't care about the long intro, feel free to use the timestamps down below to skip ahead. Now, you may have noticed that I skipped the November edition of this series, and that's because it felt a little redundant. I was talking a lot about figures with all those news videos, and those same figures went up in November for the most part. So I was kind of repeating myself right after making them, and I just really didn't like how it was turning out, so I scrapped it. However, I am going to be taking some of those figures from November and talking about them in this video. So we're still gonna cover a little bit of November, so consider it like 1.5 months, I guess. Another thing though that might be disappointing to some of you guys, I'm not going to talk about the Nendoroids this time. I have a lot on my plate and I don't want to make excuses, but I really want to get moving on some of my other projects. I got some reviews lined up. I want to make my 2023 pre-orders video and another one that I'm going to get to in a quick second. But let me know though, do you enjoy hearing me talk about the Nendoroids, or do you feel like it's just fluff at the end of the video? My impression is that most of my audience doesn't really care, but I don't know, it really is up to like the comments in the video to let me know how you guys are enjoying these things. So, you know, any feedback's appreciated on that. I wouldn't say I'm never gonna do it again, but this time I'm gonna take a break from it so that this video, you know, comes out a little bit quicker. And lastly, before this video finally gets started, I was thinking of making a 2022 video, like my favorite figures I unboxed and whatnot. Maybe like a update video, because it's been a year since I started on this channel, but I may need your help, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. So if you want to get involved, watch at the end. But until then, let's just finally start talking about these figures. Okay, so first up, I want to talk about Anya and Yor from Good Smile Company. This figure came out in like November and was a very popular release. A lot of people like this one, myself included, and it's not hard to understand why. I think this might mark the only time a Yor figure has actually looked like her. Like, I don't understand why it's so hard to capture the Spy Family art style. But yeah, I think you could just tell from a glance that these two are like a step above most Spy Family figures, at least in my opinion. Like the texturing in Yor's sweater, or the amount of shading that's in Anya's hair. Like, her hair looks really nice, all those different pink tones just blending seamlessly. Her face is super cute, Yor's looking lovely as well. I like that they're in their casual clothes, even though more people would probably prefer Yor in her assassination outfit. And that ottoman looks real, like that is a really nice looking piece of furniture. This is just like a really pleasant family photo, despite the father missing and our complaints for a Lloyd figure seemingly just being ignored, but I think I say that every time I see this figure, so I'll leave it at that. 25,000 yen is really reasonable in my opinion too, like 2 figures and a sizable piece of furniture, and they're not really skimping out on the quality either. So yeah, one of the best figures of November in my opinion, though I haven't ordered it yet. Like, I enjoyed the show, but I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like pre-ordering figures is getting more and more pointless. Like, considering how popular this is and it's a standard release, I don't feel like I need to jump on this right now, but I don't know, like I doubt I'll have problems finding this if I want it in the future, but I'm just not really compelled to get this right now for some reason, but I do recommend it. I do think this one looks great. Rika High School Student version by Miyuki. You know, I saw like a handful of comments on this one saying that they didn't really like her face, but I personally find it to be pretty dang cute, and I like the little hair adjustment that she's doing with her hand. It just gets me every time, I don't know. It's a simple figure with some really like vibrant blues, which I like, but 25,000 yen for a school uniform figure is kinda crazy. I mean, we just looked at another figure for 25,000 yen with much more to offer, but I suppose you do get some optional parts with this one. An additional faceplate and some new arms. She's locking hands with Satoko, which is adorable, and she's doing this like cat nippon kind of thing. But this essentially locks you into getting both figures. Otherwise, these parts aren't gonna make any sense. Like, you can't really use them on their own. So I guess consider that if you plan to pick up one of these girls, and it's gonna cost you like 50,000 yen for both of them, but they are very cute together. I think these two look great as a pair, and do look great separately, but you do have to consider all these little things when you decide to pick these up, if you do. So we actually got 3 Asuka figures over the past 2 months, though one of them is pretty different, so we'll talk about that later, but 2 of them were very similar, so let's talk about them now. This is the Good Smile Company version based on the final movie and her grown-up appearance, which is why the suit is ripping and it like no longer properly fits her. You know, the first time I saw this figure, I really didn't like it. Just didn't really like her face, and it looked like she had too much blush in the first photos, but it's been growing on me the more I see it. I'd say she's rather pretty here, and the detailing in the suit is pretty impressive as well. Whether it be the fan service from the ripped holes, or just like the creasing forming from her body's positioning, which is really important, mind you, like I want you to remember that for later in this video, or even like the shiny red paint used here, it's hard not to like this sculpt, right? I also really dig this base, the low gravity aspect to it. Sure, you gotta ignore the acrylic stand keeping her up, but it gives this figure like a unique flavor, so to speak. On the other side of things though, we've got the Kotobukiya version of Asuka, and this one feels much more canonical, like it feels more in-universe, like it's plucked straight from the movie, whereas the Good Smile Company version kind of gives me like pinup vibes with its pose. There's nothing wrong with that, but the tones of these two figures are very different. You're still getting that ripped up suit, though this time it looks even more damaged, and her face is much more in like shock and awe at the events transpiring. The base is pretty neat on this one too, being split down the middle and colored differently on each side. I do like that look quite a bit. I couldn't tell you which one is better, but it's nice that they're so different despite the similarities. And at least with the Kotobukiya version, I didn't really have any doubts when I saw it. It was just like, yup, that's Asuka. But at the same time, the Good Smile Company version definitely makes her look older. So there are things to consider about these two figures if you're on the fence between one or the other. Atago and Takao Race Queen versions. I know I've talked about this one before in a video I unlisted at this point, but let's just go over the details again. This figure has 3 releases, the one you're looking at right now, and 2 others of each girl individually. If you're not a fan of symmetrical docking and bird squishing, you go with the other releases. Though to me, the joint figures will always be something I find more interesting. Keep in mind though that the faceplates aren't swappable and the releases do have different faces, so it's not so cut and dry. At first I thought this was kinda dumb, but separating the releases should mean less seam lines and like connection points, leading to better sculpts, so it's probably for the best. But I mean, all of Alter's Azur Lane figures are bangers though, so no matter how you choose to pick up these figures, I'm sure you're gonna enjoy it. And if you're not a fan of these two, there was also the Pola Seaside figure and the Baltimore After School figure, which I've talked about a lot, so I'm not really bringing them up too much in this video, but they did go up these past 2 months, and they're probably pretty popular, so you got a lot to choose from Alter if you like Azur Lane. However, what really caught my attention was Wave's Honolulu figure. If this price was better, I'd be so in on this one, but I really love the sculpt here. She's challenging Miku with these twin tails, but the semi-transparent plastic almost gives them like a candy-like appearance, and the sculpt is so fun, just like twisting and spiraling all over the place. This color combination of a light blue kimono and red and orange toned twin tails just looks wonderful, and the gold sash and hair ornaments pop even more with the contrasting colors. These photos don't even try to hide her thickness, like good lord, look at the suction on the socks at her thighs right here, and then her chest is like ready to burst out at the top. Her face is also really cute, I love it a lot, but the optional face piece I really don't like. I would never use this. I don't know if it's just like my monitor, but the blush is barely showing on my screen, and like I'm sure this is supposed to be some like, I don't know, embarrassed or tsundere face, but it's just not really doing it for me. But thankfully, if that's the only thing I have to complain about, an optional piece, then it doesn't matter. Just don't use it, right? So yeah, that's like the only thing I don't like, besides the price, which is a bummer, and it's the reason I'm not gonna pick this up. But I think this is one of my favorite Azur Lane figures I've seen, mostly because of the colors. The thickness is very good too, and it's just a fun one. I just like this outfit. I just think I like everything about it. I don't even mind the fact that it comes with the support for her hair. At the very least, it'll help stability so it doesn't lean over time. Yeah, this one's really good. I don't know the first thing about this character, but this is a really cool looking figure. Kano Nadamesukashi. That's a really long name to say, goddamn. But this one looks like a screenshot from like an anime opening or something, complete with a backdrop of the sky as she's like falling down, surrounded by all her favorite, or I guess assumingly favorite things from her room and whatnot. I love that she's got her arms extended, ready to embrace the cat. I think that's really cute. The flowing and messy hair sculpt really like captures the moment well. And I just like that she's wearing bloomers. As a Toho fan, that's just something I've learned to appreciate over the years. The outfit that she's wearing is also pretty cute too. It's like some sort of variation on a school sailor uniform, right? I think the only thing I'd ask more of from this figure are the ribbons around her neck. I just wish they were longer or the movement of them was a bit more erratic or interesting. As it stands, they're kind of just like hovering at the top of the figure and they're supporting a couple of the pieces, but it doesn't really grab my attention and I feel like they could have done more with it, but overall, this is still a very cool looking piece for sure. And I doubt we're gonna see too many figures like this in the rest of the video. I was debating pointing this out though, but does the cat have balls? I think it does, and they kind of don't show you too many angles of it on purpose and blur it out there. But yeah, this cat might have some nads, and that's something, I guess. I don't know. I might have ruined the figure for you if you care about that, and I apologize, but it's better to know now than later when you get it and you end up with something you don't like. But anyway, cool looking figure. Let's move on. This is, in my opinion, one of the biggest sleepers of November, the Ariel figure from So I'm a Spider, So What, made by Amakuni. I have not heard any hype about this figure, and I think it's gorgeous. Her design is amazing, and I'm just gonna spend the next minute or so talking about it. I mean, first thing you probably notice is her cape, right? It's non-traditional in the fact that it's made up of like 6 larger stripes with these beautiful gold segments and sharp red jewels, and they're like slightly curving around her body, almost as if they're ready to attack you. There's also this really vibrant pink and red gradient lining the inside of each part of the cape, and it just pops so hard on this figure. It looks so good. I really like the sculpting of this collar. It's super high, it's spiky, but also looks fluffy at the same time. Her face is super cute. That little fang sticking out of her smile just kind of makes me smile. Her eyes are really pretty from the pinkish red color to the eyelashes, and even the like yellow eyeliner, which I'm just a sucker for. And then her tube top and hot pants really emphasizes how sexy her body sculpt is. That latex look is just super attractive, on top of the fact that she's wearing a thong and her butt is basically like halfway out of her pants. Kind of hard not to like this figure. I think I like everything about this one. If I already saw this series, I probably would have ordered it, but considering it's a little expensive and I don't know anything about this character, I'm probably just gonna wait and see how this one turns out and then maybe pick her up on the aftermarket. These figures are unfortunately just getting a little too expensive to impulse buy like this, but I really do like this one. Neala Black Bunny. I really wanted to like this one, but something's just off about it. The size for the price is good, and the bunny suit is unique enough with like the straps on the legs, and I like the bunny armband right there, but her face looks really tiny, like not even just the head, the face itself. And it could just be the angle of it, but this is like the main view, and they kind of hide the face in almost all the other photos, so it kind of makes me worry. There's also this red bunny version, which looks way worse. Like, I got nothing nice to say about this one. Her skin looks sickly, and her eyes look bloodshot. Like, I don't know what happened here, but it doesn't even really look finished. It's a shame, but like, what can you do? This Erofu Luna figure is one that I've been battling myself on whether or not I should order it, because I don't need it, but it kind of does everything I like. It balances like cute, cool, and sexy all at the same time, and I'll try to explain that. So you got the outfit, right? The heart stockings, the Lolita shoes, the bunny hoodie, which you need to turn it around to see it, but all that shit's adorable. But then you also got the piercings, the black nail polish, the belts and the straps, and even the mask, and maybe that's just a me thing, but I think it looks kind of cool when anime girls wear masks. Regardless, it's cool. And then of course the larger than average chest, the stockings coming off, the butts front and center, devious licking of the lips, and it's a cast off, which goes without saying. I just really love this art style. Her faces are great, the outfit's great, and the price is really reasonable for a 1/6 scale. In fact, this is the exclusive version, which costs a little bit more, and it's still reasonable. In fact, if we scroll down, we can see that it's just a bunch of optional parts when it comes to the cast-off aspects of this figure, which makes me think that you're really not gonna have to worry about like bad paint transfer or breaking any pieces when trying to get to those cast-offable aspects of the figure, right? So yeah, while I don't have any personal experience with Vibrastar, I haven't heard anything bad about them, and everything is telling me to just order this and stop overthinking it. But I guess you'll find out if I end up with this thing in December. I don't really know yet, but I'm leaning towards yes. Alright, the next figure in the Radio Eva line is up next, Mari Makinami. Not really a character I like, if I'm being honest, but I like her drip, and the pose is very different compared to everyone else in like both lines so far. She's like hitting the floor, and as a result, her hair and jacket are flowing up a little bit. It's a good pose and sculpt for sure. From afar, the sweatshirt looks a little bit boring, but when you zoom in on it or get closer to the figure, the patches or logos do add some nice flair to it. And I think I do enjoy like the oversized skirt that she's wearing. There's something about that baggy appearance that just looks cool. I don't know. If there's something that I do know that I like no matter what, it's painted nails, and I like that they painted them red on this figure. Just really pops against the rest of the colors. Pretty cool sneakers too, but I think I've said cool too many times, so let's just say fresh. I wish I could see the laces though. It seems like there is some color incorporated on the top of the sneakers, but outside of like the main body of pink and a little bit of yellow on the back, I just am not really getting to appreciate how they painted these shoes. But I do like the way they did the soles on these one. If I can find a photo of it, I just think that's some really nice sculpting right there. That is some good texturing work. Like all the other releases in the Radio Eva line, there's also an accompanying monochrome version, but this one is so monochrome that I have nothing to say about it, and I really don't like the execution of it. It's so strange to me how her fingernails remain red, but the rim of her glasses don't, considering red is the color that typically breaks up the monotony. You can find more red on the bag and I think on the lining inside of the jacket, but it's just weird that they omitted that part by her face. But either way, these versions are for very specific collectors anyway, and that's not me, so don't worry much about my take here. Yeah, they're both cool, but I definitely prefer the normal version much more. Yeah, there's no beating around the bush with this one. This is a figure that cost $500, and if it was like a 1/7 scale, I'd feel better justifying it. But 1/8 is kind of upsetting. But to be fair though, and I am gonna try and justify it, let's break this figure down. You gotta take Lancer by herself, right? The armor design, the spiky crown, the like dragon-like tail coming off of the chest plate, and the cape. She's got her noble phantasm on deck. Like all of this is gonna add up. There's no way that Lancer on her own wouldn't cost at bare minimum like 25,000 yen, but probably more considering how much detailing is going into her body and her armor, right? Like there's a lot here. Now throw in a huge demonic horse, give it its own horse cloak, a huge flowing mane, a flowing smoky effect piece, and incorporate both figures together, which is, you know, an engineering feat in itself, it's gonna add up. And it kind of makes sense. Does it feel good? No. No one wants to spend 65,000 yen on a 1/8 scale. But it is an ambitious figure. It's grand in scope, dynamic in composition, and it's going to be painted to near perfection as it's made by QSQ, and they are one of the GOATs of the industry. This figure is sick as hell, and I sure as hell ain't picking it up, but I'm sure someone will, and they are gonna be one lucky collector, or I guess one financially like stable collector, and they're gonna have something really spectacular, and I can't wait to see it. But yeah, it sucks that a lot of people can't pick this one up, but let's be real, what were you expecting with the prices these days? There is no way this was gonna be affordable, so let's just appreciate it from afar. Treecko looks so cute, I love that little guy, but Brendan's platformer mascot pose is something that I'm still not over. Like, I think it is really goofy. I know he's just running, but it really looks like he's about to start jumping 10 feet in the air, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's a good looking sculpt for what they've made though. The paint looks very clean, and the art style is definitely on point. Like, even though I would always pick May in Ruby and Sapphire, and also Emeralds, I still think this is fine, and you know, same song and dance. Pokemon figures, you pre-order them before you regret it. They all come out looking exactly like the prototype, and everybody who picks them up are usually very happy. But before I forget, they're also re-releasing the May figure from the Ruby and Alpha Sapphire design. I think this was one of their first Pokemon figures, if I recall. Either way, very popular, and if you like Mudkip, that's how you get Mudkip. So consider picking this one up if you missed out on it originally, and yeah, don't forget to get your Pokemon figures before you regret it. So Freeing had a surprising amount of releases this past month, and I'm going to run through almost all, if not all of them, right now. Starting off with the easiest to talk about, the Chio bare leg version and the Mamako bare leg version. Both of these figures are very well known, they're very popular, and I think they're pretty expensive on the aftermarket as well. So you're going to want to pick these two up if you like them. I think these two are among some of the better bunnies they've released over the past few years. They certainly fit the part, and I think they do look quite nice for what they are. I think this Chio character gets a lot of figures outside of bunny figures, so there is that to consider. If you like her design, you can look around, shop around for some other designs of her if you just like this aesthetic and character design. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about those two. Rei Ayanami tentative name. They don't even know what to call this one. I remember seeing it at One Hobby, and I wasn't really the biggest fan of it. She looked extremely thin, and the face looked kinda emotionless, which is fine for Rei, but just not really something I like in figures. But I think this zoomed in photo does, you know, give her a nice, soft smile, and I do like the expression on it, and I do like the black and red plug suit. It looks pretty good on her. It costs around 33,000 yen, which is a little less than usual these days, but I don't know, it's not really an exciting figure, but when are any of these figures from Freeing really exciting? They're pretty basic poses for the most part. So yeah, I mean, in the sea of Rei figures, do you need this one? I don't know, it's big Rei. She's a big figure, so that's something to consider if you collect Rei figures, right? But that's really the main selling point outside of just the color of the suit, I guess. Rebecca Blue Garden and Homura Kogetsu, both from Eden Zero. Now, I don't know these characters, I gotta judge them on a surface level, right? But when you compare the two, I think there's a really obvious reason as why someone would pick up Rebecca instead of Homura. And I think Freeing knows that, because, yeah, they made her ass humongous. And that's not a bad thing. That's like what the audience wants, I'm pretty sure. So I get it. But on top of that, I gotta say, I do like the color palette of Rebecca a little bit more. That light blonde hair and like that rich blue they chose for her suit honestly looks really good together. In comparison, I think Homura's suits and hair combination is fine. They contrast against each other, which makes each section pop, but I don't know, it just doesn't really look as nice to me. And they both kind of have the same chest size, so it's not like the Senran Kagura bunnies from a couple months back where there's like a clear advantage to like one girl over the other. I guess it would really just be whether or not you like one character over the other, but as someone who doesn't understand their personalities and whatnot, I just gotta go with the one that looks a little nicer, I guess, and I think that's Rebecca. But there's really objectively nothing wrong with Homura, I just don't think it's as interesting. Very interesting, so to speak. Yeah, moving on. Koshi Komeiji. This is actually pretty relevant to me as someone who likes Toho, and they've made a couple of 1/4 scale so far. I think it's only Reimu and Marissa. Both of them are very lovely. I wish I had them. I wish I had the space for them, but I don't. And I think it's kind of odd that they chose Koshi Komeiji here, just because I don't think she's like the third most popular character, but she's definitely lovely. I do like her design. I think she fits the bill. But I gotta say, I think the way they painted her hair is horrible. I hate this like weird shininess to it. It just like has a metallic sheen, and I don't get why they went with that choice. Everything else about this figure looks nice. I like all the wiring, the eyeball that she's holding on to. You can take off the hat, apparently. That's fun. Sure she's got some bloomers. Actually, maybe not. I don't know if that's true for all Tohos, but I don't know, I think the hair kind of ruins it. It looks a little bit better up close, but this is a 55,000 yen figure. It's not cheap by any means, and I assume it's not gonna sell that well because of that. But yeah, like frilliness aside, cute outfit aside, like when you look at the figure's face and then you notice the hair just doesn't really look that good, at least in my opinion, it starts to crumble a little bit. But I do wonder if they're gonna make her sister, because I like her sister a little bit more. I would imagine they would. I just hope they don't choose to color the hair like that, because I would be pretty upset. Todoroki got a 1/4 scale, and he actually looks pretty good, and he's not that unreasonable in terms of a 1/4 scale male character. He is 44,000 yen, and that is a lot of money, but you'll see in a second things are gonna get worse in terms of pricing, and I think it's just because they reserved themselves a little bit with this flame effect. It's all they really needed to do outside of maybe some ice on the base, I guess, if they really wanted to show both sides of his ability. But I think the pose is good. I think the effect looks nice. It's nothing too crazy, but you know, the shading and the paintwork and the sculpt looks all on point. and I'm pretty sure the other Boku no Hero Academia 1/4 scales look pretty good, so I assume Todoroki will as well. Alright, yeah, this is what I was talking about. Gone Freaks is a 66,000 yen figure, and if I'm being frank, as much as I like Hunter x Hunter, I don't really like this figure that much. Like, outside of the price, which is kind of atrocious for what this is, I think his face looks kind of strange. I don't really like it. I do like the energy behind it. I think the Jajanken that he's charging up looks pretty cool. Some of these effect pieces swirling around him does look pretty neat, and the coloring within them looks pretty rad as well, but there's just something off about this one, and I think it would genuinely look better if he was shrunken down to like a 1/8 or 1/7 scale. I really don't know why it's so hard to just get some reasonably priced Hunter x Hunter figures. Like, I would love to have a Gon and a Killua, but I just don't want a giant version of him, and like, there's something about spending so much money on a figure, and then it comes with like acrylic stands like this. I feel like there's really no excuse for it, especially when it's in his hand. Like, it's not even the swirling parts that it's supporting, it's the giant orb. But like, why? Like, why isn't that like connection point on his hand strong enough to keep it up? I don't know. It's very distracting, and it makes the figure look cheaper, which is passable on cheaper figures, but when you're spending almost half a grand on a scale, I think you should expect a little bit more. But at the very least, the rest of his body and clothes look fine. Like, it's not a terrible figure by any means, but I think the face looks a little off to me personally, and I wish they went with a slightly different direction, or just make it smaller. I would have bought it if it was smaller, even if it looked exactly like this, because I just want some Hunter x Hunter figures. But then there's also Killua, who I actually think is a lot better, and he's also 55,000 yen, so he's 11,000 yen cheaper. But I think the effects here work a lot better. Just like all these jagged electricity pieces just going around him, and the way they sculpted his hair to be like slightly translucent at the tips looks awesome. Face looks a little bit better on this one too, and they don't really have to try to make him look cool. He just looks pretty cool. I will say, and this might be like some lighting trickery, but his shirts, or I guess his tank top and his pants, are so much like brighter and saturated compared to what I expect them to look. Like, if this is the Nendoroid right here, then like the tank top is no longer white and the shorts are no longer a dark like navy blue. But I'm assuming that they're kind of implying that the light bouncing off of him is making his clothes just brighter by association. That's gotta be it, but like, I don't know. It just looks a little strange to me, but it's not like a deal breaker or anything. As long as you acknowledge that fact, I guess you're good. Maybe if it like showed more in the shoes and like his skin, I would feel a little bit better about that, but I really feel like it's only being showcased on his clothing. But yeah, there's nothing really wrong about this one. I think it's a step up from Gon, and it's at least cheaper too. And I expect this one to sell better. I just think Killua products sell better anyway. I don't know why that is. Maybe there's just more fans of him. But yeah, cool figure. Would have wanted it if it was, you know, cheaper, just again, so I could have some Hunter x Hunter merch, but I don't know. Some other company, please just make a 1/8 or 1/7 scale so I could afford it. Thank you. Girls Frontline 89 Shiki Reindeer Manifesto. Yeah, this is the one where the girl brings an assault rifle to the Christmas party, and it's goofy, but it looks pretty good. This one's like 60,000 yen. And there's no like crazy effects going on, which usually jacks up the price for freeing. Instead, you're getting like a sack of toys, maybe? I don't really know what's in that sack, but there's certainly presents. I like the way that the presents are falling out of her hand. I think that's pretty neat. There's presents in her jacket as well, and these ribbons look really good. I can't tell if that's like some sort of fabric material or if it's actually sculpted to look as such. But the ribbons all around her body are pretty hot. The sculpt is good. Apparently her butt is just like almost all the way out there if you stare at her from the back. But this is a weird one. Like, Christmas figures are already kind of niche, but now you're like investing a lot of money into a giant Christmas figure. And it's not like something that someone can ignore if you have this like open on display all year round. Someone's gonna ask why you got the Christmas decoration up instead of like, you know, the 1/8 scale sitting in the shelf near other figures. No one's gonna bother you about that. But this one's gonna bring some attention. So I wonder like what the audience is for this. But it's cute. Really nothing wrong with it. It's nice. I think I talked about it more in another video though, so let's move on. I think this is the last freeing figure. It's Mega House, but it's also freeing, like they're the ones who make it. Mega House distributes it. They're making one of Meer Campbell, and she's got a really seductive looking face. I think this one looks pretty dang good. The price is kind of high though, 44,000 yen. But at the very least, they're changing up the suit quite a bit. It doesn't look like a traditional bunny. It has some like Gundam Seed motifs to it. I haven't seen Gundam Seed. I know there's another girl in this line that looks great as well, so I'd assume they would look nice with each other. Oh, she's right there. She comes with a hero. I like him, but she does not. I guess she's a little bit cuter, but she looks nice. It's kind of funny how differently shaded these two look in the hair department. I don't know if they're supposed to have the exact same shade of pink hair, but whatever the case, yeah, this one just clearly looks a little bit sexier because the stockings end like before the butt, whereas these go all the way up to the suit. So probably looks pretty good from the back. I don't know if they have, yeah, yeah, all right, so that's gonna wrap up the freeing section, I'm pretty sure. If not, I'll throw it in right now, but otherwise we're gonna move forward. One last time, we'll talk about the new Ryza figure. The Thick Queen is back with a new design from her newest game, and I'm really partial to this new look. I don't know if I could say it beats the original series design, but this older interpretation of her is quite something. I find it quite lovely. It's still familiar, which is important, keeping a lot of the design beats of the other games, but changing them up enough to still feel fresh. She's got new boots, a new jacket, some different pouches and accessories to be found throughout the design, and the newer staff with like the flag just looks pretty rad. Can never change those shorts though, and the territory between them and the boots. That is like sacred land, never to be tampered with. I do wish I liked her expression more though. It still hasn't won me over all this time later, but I'm hoping it'll look better once we have in-hand pictures. Or I guess if I bought it, just, you know, how it looks in person. This is the Luo Tianyi 10th anniversary figure by B-Box, the virtual diva from China, I believe. My eyes are always drawn to figures like this, like these idol figures, because they're always in such pretty outfits and have cute, happy faces. It's like a serotonin booster, basically, even when I don't know anything about the character. This one's fairly unique with its composition, setting the stage, so to speak, with a gold and blue staircase and a huge circular ribbon surrounding her. There's tons of golden musical notes on some acrylics in the background and on the dress. There's the flowing of the dress and her hair, which makes her pose feel more lively, like she's really putting on a show as she walks down the steps with the mic in hand. Normally, I'd bitch about the acrylic sheets in the background for the notes, but I'm pretty satisfied with the end result here. And the costume and the colors are doing a really good job helping me ignore it. There's so much white on this figure, but it's kind of kept under control with the blue ribbons and her green eyes, and of course, all that gold decorating her outfit and the background. One thing I really like about this figure is this ornament right here, this like blue heart with the orbiting ring and the stars. It really just gives her her own special flair that makes this figure feel a little bit more unique, right? And there's also this like tiny little fella, if I can change the page real quick, this like little guy down here. I just want to know more about him. He's got a cute little crown, some wings, and a bow tie. I like him a lot. He's adorable, but I don't even know his name. There's really not much of like like any detailing in the paragraph here. It's one of the smallest paragraphs I've ever seen on Good Smile Company's page. I could see people complaining about how this figure looks a little bit busy, maybe, but I think this one wants to be like a bit of a centerpiece and grab your attention, so I understand what they're going for, and I think it definitely works. But there's like a bit of obscurity to this character, so it's probably not going to sell too well over here, unless you treat her like an OC character, I guess. So this was the other Asuka I was talking about, a 3-in-1 figure with Rei and Mari as well, made by Takao. And it was a pretty cool announcement when it happened at One Hobby, but I gotta say I'm frankly pretty disappointed in it because it looks bland. Like there's really not that much to say about it outside of the girls interacting with each other, I guess. I mean, that is the gimmick, but that's not strong enough in my opinion. The paintwork is so average and the sculpting is as basic as it gets. Like, do you remember when I made a comment about all those creases in the Asuka figures? Like, even the Kotobukiya one did a good job on that. But these girls are so like sleek and slender without any definition in their suit outside of like the design of the suits that they almost look too cartoony. There's just like a level of realism you need to reach in figures when you're asking this much money. Otherwise, you could just make prize figures because people don't expect much detailing in those sculpts. But when you ask 41,000 yen for these three, you do expect a little bit more. Now, you are getting 3 characters, but I don't think there's enough detailing in this set, so to speak, to really warrant that price tag. I mean, even like Ray's eyes don't look like the right color. They're not red enough, and they look more like a pink. And I think it's kind of telling, if I could find the photo again, that the only like crease in their suit are their butt cracks. Like, I don't know, I think that really tells you what Takao was focusing on with this figure. But it's really unimpressive. Like, I just don't see a reason to want these 3. And I think for 41 to 42,000 yen before shipping, you would be much better off just finding 3 really nice figures of each of these characters. I mean, Ray and Asuka are not short on that at all. Maybe Mari is, but we just talked about one that looks way better than this. So I think you should do that. You know, I'm not your dad. You don't have to listen to me, but I just don't see the appeal of this one. Very boring base as well. It's just a big black disc. It's gonna be a fingerprint magnet, so never touch it unless you have gloves. But yeah, I think this one's a bit of a disappointment. You know what sucks? I think this might be the end of affordable Mythos figures. Like, there's something going on lately where the prices are much higher than they used to be. And that's such a bummer because Mythos were like the easiest company to recommend when you wanted something beautiful and affordable. They were like the homies of the industry, just helping us all build our collections. But it's also like more complicated than that because it seems like prices for these figures are cheaper in China than they are when they distribute them in Japan. And I have 2 examples of that, like with this VIOLA figure right here. She's around 30,000 yen on Good Smile Company's site, but I could swear she was around 20,000 yen when she was first revealed and put up on MFC. I don't have that information in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's the case, and I don't think that information will be too hard to find in the comments section, and it's way easier to find in our next figure we're going to talk about. But let's focus on VIOLA here, because this is a great looking figure. She's like a devil jester girl, a Jevil if you will. Cue the Delta Rune song right now, we'll play it for the rest of this part of the video. There's really nice detailing in her entire outfit, like the black polka dots, which I guess I should try and find a better photo of that. It's like all throughout this character, and it looks awesome. I think the best part is right here on her bow tie. There's like a halftone pattern to it, which I wish was incorporated a little bit more because it looks so cool, but the rest of the design kind of just goes for simple black polka dots, which is cool still, don't get me wrong. I like it, but more would have been better, right? More halftone would have definitely been cooler. Gotta say, I'm also loving the way they designed this jacket. It's still got those black polka dots, but it's also a red transparent plastic with these X's kind of just like running through the entire thing. And normally, I don't like the translucent plastic, but I think it works really well here because the color is awesome and the pattern throughout it is good. So even without some nice gradation to kind of like change up the plastic, it still is really striking. It's just a really sick character design, which is not surprising because Red Juice designed her, and that's really all you need to hear because that guy is a genius. But yeah, there's just like a lot of fun design elements in this figure. Like there's glitter all throughout her design. There's a bow tie on her tail. That's super cute. Her base is also sick as hell. It kind of reminds me of the Makima figure from Furyu, except way better. Like there's nothing actually in common with it, but the red crystals kind of look like blood splattering off from the center. But you mix in some black crystals, some stone. Her sword is piercing through the stone. I didn't notice that until just now, actually, but like the rocks are cracking because of it. A lot of details going on in this figure. Let me go back to her like stockings, leggings, whatever. I like the design of them too before I go. It's got that like similar cross pattern from the jacket, but as it kind of breaks apart, they turn into little stars. I think it looks nice. Clearly, this is a superb piece that is absolutely worth your money. I don't think I even mentioned how much I like her shark teeth and her horns. That shit looks awesome. Yeah, everything about this one is great. But like 2 months ago, it would have cost 20,000 yen, and I probably would have bought it. But for 30,000 yen, I don't know. I don't really need it. That's $100 more, so like, You gotta really make your decisions here on these figures these days. But you know what, while we're at it, let's talk about Aki from Chainsaw Man, also by Myethos, which was pretty surprising, and also around 30,000 yen. The conversion rate makes him around 206 on the US site. For some reason, not on the global site. Also, this is considered a partner product, which is not common for these Myethos figures. I don't know what's going on with this release, but it's being handled very differently. Now, I think this is a great looking figure, and kudos to the company for making a figure of Aki instead of just Denji or Power. Like, honestly, I like those characters better than Aki. That's just me. But we need more companies to make other characters, and it's really cool of them to give us this interpretation of Aki, kind of just looking like a badass, looking real cool. And there's a zombie on the ground. Obviously, he is very bloody, which just kind of contributes to the edgy, like, cool factor of this figure. And his face looks great. If I could find a photo of it, let me see if there is one zoomed in. There probably is, but yeah, he looks very, like, character accurate to the anime. I think they nailed this one. Again, I remember this figure going up on MFC, and it was listed at around 19,000 yen, because that was the conversion from, like, the Chinese currency to the Japanese currency. But yeah, now it's like 30,000 yen, and that kind of sucks. But there's a lot of detailing going on in this figure if you're trying to, like, justify the price in your head. He's sitting on an office chair. There's a jacket hanging off of the office chair. There's actually two zombies, which I did not notice till now. I thought it was only the one in the front. But hey, there's some extra body parts that they have to sculpt, right? The wooden floor looks great. If I could find more pictures of it, his face looks really good. The blood splattered all over his body looks phenomenal. Like, they did a really good job making the blood look realistic. Yeah, like, there's no complaints from me on this guy. And, I think they're really, like, gunning for the people who find Aki attractive. Like, I think there's something about him that looks extra handsome, so to speak. And I think it's really making people worried about this one because it's not an easy release to get just yet. It's not at a lot of stores. It seems like it's limited in China and American stores for some reason, but a lot of the Japanese retailers don't seem to have him yet. So I'd say, I don't know. I actually don't know how you're gonna pick this guy up, but I'm sure something will eventually happen and he'll be released more, like, widespread and you'll be able to pick him up. So don't fret it too much, but I mean, if you see him for a good price, I say go for it if you like him, and I think there is a lot of things to like about him. Okay, it took a bit of a break, like an hour or so, just had to get out of this chair. I think we're here on a Lumina's A to Z F01. Now this sucks because they're asking 30,000 yen for this, and a lot of the girls in this line, who I think were handled by Myethos, were around like 14,000, at least under 20 from what I can recall. And this is just, like, in my opinion, the most boring girl to date with the most ridiculous price tag to date. I do think there's some charm to the simplicity of this design, like the slimness of her limbs and the monotone design of her pants and shirt along with the jacket, like, kind of falling off of her arms. It's a cool look, but I don't know. I'm just not really seeing, like, the quality to price ratio here. A lot of these girls also come with pretty cool looking weapons, but F01's is maybe the most straightforward here, with the most unique part of it being behind her back if I could find a photo of it. So you're kind of just paying for something you won't often get to appreciate. None of the girls are very expressive, on purpose mind you, but the face here leaves me wanting more too. It's just kind of like a lackluster eye color and lashes, a frown that sort of just looks drawn on. Like, I don't really know about this one. I don't think it's worth it, but maybe I'm missing something here that you guys can fill me in on. So S-Fire is a pretty cool company in my opinion. It's basically just Sega deciding to get into PVC scales instead of just prize figures for the most part. They've done a lot with the Boku no Hero Academia series, and I really do like how their Deku and Bakugo figures turned out. And there's a lot of ambition in their other scales. And while I haven't picked up any of those, I am eagerly awaiting their Sonic and Shadow figure and the Power scale that was recently announced. Like, I need that Sonic Adventure 2 figure in my life. I am tired of waiting for it. I am eagerly awaiting the price tag to upset me a little bit, but we're not here to talk about that. Point is, they get pretty creative, and they're similarly doing something pretty creative with this Muzan figure in his Geiko form. It's interesting because they're really shifting the focus from him to the grotesque monster coming out of his hand. And it's pretty damn impressive, at least on the surface level. All those eyeballs and mouths and teeth and tongues, and it's just really cool to look at, this like giant mesh of veiny, gooey, I don't know, flesh, whatever this demon is made of. It's not really what you would see in a typical PVC figure, especially even from Demon Slayer. You don't really get monster designs like this. It's always focused on the main characters and whatnot. So it does have like an X factor to it. It's really exciting when you first see this figure, but I think they messed up a little bit because Muzan doesn't really look that great. I'm not really impressed with either of his faceplates, and the kimono leaves a little bit to be desired. Maybe it's just because it's like a black kimono, so it's harder to get those like shading details in there, but I don't know. This just doesn't really evoke any emotion from me. And it just kind of looks like the cheapest aspect of the figure, just really the character in general. I think the base looks cool, the tatami mat, the paper lanterns, the wooden structure of it all. That looks nice. But I would say that is the nicest part of this figure, because on closer inspection of the demon, while I think there are some finer details to really, appreciate, like how the teeth are yellowing, like if you check on the top and bottom of the rows, it looks good, but it also kind of looks a bit plasticky. And when they're asking for like 38,000 yen for this guy, I don't know if it's worth it. It's certainly ambitious, it's certainly different, and it's certainly cool, but I just wish it didn't feel like there were details missing on Muzan, or even the demon, really. I don't know. Okay, let's see what else I opened up to talk about. Caster Scotty is one that I think I did talk about quite a bit when she was first revealed, but it's a release that's significant enough where I feel like I should at least mention it in case you missed the pre-order window or the beginning of the pre-order window. I think the main aspects about this one that I really like are the shiny finishes on the dress, the intricacies just of the costume itself, and like the warm to cold colors on the hair. I really like this gradation. Maybe there's better photos or zoomed in photos of it, but I just like how kind of almost red it is in the front and then it becomes very dark towards the end. It just looks nice to me, especially like right by her face. But yeah, this one's clearly gorgeous. I just know I talked about it a lot, so I'm trying to save myself a little bit of time here. Racing Miku 2022 with the oh so sexy bodysuit ended up costing 33,000 yen before discounts, which is just not at all what I was expecting. The craftsmanship doesn't come cheap, but I was kind of taken aback at that price when I saw it. I guess if the bodysuit and the jacket end up looking this good, it'll probably be worth it. Like, I don't want to undersell how much I like this outfit on her, but I feel like this figure needs an X factor to warrant the price. I think the flag is supposed to be doing that, but it really kind of just falls into the fine category. Like, I think if it was a different color, I'd enjoy it more, but it's supposed to be green. It's just not to my personal preference. The hair looks good. The face looks fine. Not my favorite Miku face, but not bad by any means. I guess we never saw this figure from the back. Suddenly this looks pretty good. Miku butt. That's not something you often get on these figures. There's your X factor. All right. No, I don't know. It, yeah, it definitely adds a little bit of value there, but, yeah, it's still a very expensive figure. I don't know, I thought these Racing Miku figures were supposed to be more affordable, but, maybe they're not. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I think there's like a coupon or something, but I'm not gonna get into that right now. So Racing Miku, newly discovered features. Might be worth it now, maybe, I don't know. Wings Rem is definitely Rem. It's like traveling back in time to when Rem figures were first starting to come out, but now it's 2023, and the most I could say about this one is that I think the curtsy is kind of cute. They've gotten really creative with Rem these days, like some would say too much so, like we get a lot of Rem figures lately, but I don't really mind that considering how many figures like in total we get from all these different companies. But this one's a bit too basic for like the 26,000 yen asking price. And considering that this is based off of like volume 6, at least that's what it says, I pulled up the image and I don't really feel like it captures the art style. If it looked like this, it would be a lot cuter to me and I would probably recommend it on that merit alone, but it just looks like Wings' interpretation of her and not the original authors or artists, so I don't really know. I honestly think I like the Good Smile Company's version where she's holding the tea set a little better, and that one came out so many years ago, that's probably the one I would recommend if you want a Rem in her normal outfit. However, we did get something pretty interesting out of nowhere regarding Rem and Amelia, and that is the graceful beauty versions made by Takao. These are certainly making a splash in the community. These seem pretty popular, and for once I'm on board with this company's pricing, as they're only asking around 25,000 yen, and I think that's really reasonable for the setup here. I think the sculpt on this one is pretty fantastic. It's a Chinese dress figure, but it's trying way harder by coming with this pedestal, allowing the dress and the tablecloth to drape down, and of course gives Rem like a place to sit on. Flower pattern on it is pretty, especially the gold portions. The chubby rabbit fella is neat, and I like her overall hair ornaments as well. They're still incorporating that flower that she's always wearing, but adding some more flair to it. However, and I think I'm gonna piss people off with this next statement, but does anyone else think this pose for Rem just looks weird? I mean, even the word graceful is not the term I would use to describe this figure. Like, sure, she looks playful and cutesy, but at the same time, she's arching her back and perching up her butt, and it just feels like she's kinda presenting herself. I don't know. Look, I'm just one guy. I'm just stating my opinion. More power to you if you like this figure, and I don't think it's a deal breaker, but I do find it kind of out of character. In this one image of her face, I also think she's lacking in like a little bit of detail. The eyes don't really pop through the hair. The lips could use like a little gloss or something. But before I piss off anybody else, there is also an Amelia figure to go along with this set, and I actually like it quite a bit. The pose is definitely more to my liking. The dress is more involved with the additional fur piece to like coincide with it. The fan lends itself more to like the graceful theming. This figure comes with a lamp instead of a fat rabbit for whatever reason, at an additional cost, mind you. This one costs 27,000 yen instead of around 24, 25, so keep that in mind. She's also missing one of her heels for some reason, and it's nowhere to be seen on this figure, but I'm not complaining. I still think her face comes off as a little flat and lacking, though not as much, and that's likely due to the contrast of the purple eyes against her like really fair skin complexion and the white hair. But overall, yeah, really good prices on these two, regardless of my opinion on like their poses and whatnot. And I say pick them up if you like them, because it really does seem like a value for what you're getting. So it gets the thumbs up. Just not something I personally am planning to get, I guess. I really don't understand Takao though. Like, this Ria's Gremory figure is actually not that bad at all. In fact, I think it's one of her better figures. She's got a lovely face, a very voluminous hair sculpt in a vivid shade of red, which I like a lot, and it's surprisingly modest for what is a wedding bikini figure from an ecchi series. I am genuinely surprised that this figure is not like half naked, considering the source material. But this figure costs 40,000 yen, and it's just like, how? Like, how? How does it cost this much freaking money? To be fair though, there are some optional parts you could swap out. Like, you can change the sleeves to get something a bit more traditional, and there's also a big hood, a Shiromuku hood, which is kind of like a traditional Japanese style wedding attire, right? Looks a little bit goofy on this figure because she's in a bikini of sorts, but it doesn't look super out of place, and it's definitely a sizable piece of plastic that has to fit on her giant hair sculpt. So yeah, I mean, I get it. The price can't be super cheap considering how much plastic you're getting, but man, I don't really understand. It's kind of crazy how much they can ask for this one, and then you just look at the Rem and Amelia figure, and it's like, huh, these are like 15,000 yen less. And I would argue much more intricately detailed, and a lot more work has to go into making those figures than this one. But what do I know? I'm just guessing here. But yeah, I guess I really shouldn't be surprised at this point. Takao just randomly has really weird prices, but at the very least, this one doesn't look bad at all, so that's good. Max Factory's MX-chan. Yeah, I bought this immediately. I didn't think about it at all. Day one pre-order. I love this figure. It is such a banger. Now here's the thing. This figure is a 1/7 scale, but she's actually 28 centimeters tall. This girl is gigantic and also very voluptuous, as you can tell. She's not even wearing pants. It's just a bunch of straps and like metallic linings across the body. And her outfit is like a leotard and a hoodie at the same time. I'm not exactly sure, but there's like a sci-fi element to the entire thing. And there's this crazy contrast with the cutesy, innocent face with the blush and the flesh fang with this dynamite body, and I fucking love it. It is so good. She is fairly muscular too. It is very obvious with her legs. Like, I would love to see her just crush some watermelons, or my head, I guess, because you gotta go out someday, right? You're gonna call bullshit on this one, but I would still like this design if Toridamino didn't like crank up the thickness more than he usually does, but it just makes it so that there's more plastic to appreciate. Other things that I like about this figure, her ponytail, her long hair, I think that looks great. The sunglasses too, they kind of contribute to a sporty look. Somehow I didn't even notice that she had a mole on her chest until right now. That's just details, man. Max Factory, pretty based. Yeah, this figure turned out pretty good. I think we have a winner on our hands, and I am certainly happy to be adding this one to my collection in about a year from now, but that's enough about this figure. Let's jump forward to the next one. I think we need to give Spiritel some credit, some acknowledgement on this figure. Like, how the hell are they only asking 26,000 yen for this? In today's age, unheard of. It's not even like a lazy photo frame either. The design of the gold is really intricate. The pillow portion is decorated with a bunch of feathers and flowers and petals, and you can actually prop it up like a proper photo. That's pretty cool. Albedo also just looks phenomenal in this one. Like, the curvature of the wingspan just brings your eyes back to her body. The hair spilling out of the frame looks really nice. The thorns wrapping around her body and her feet peeking out from the like bottom of the wings. I think I said this last time, but it just feels like convenient censorship done right. There's like a vulnerability to Albedo here, which is captured really well, and I don't know, I guess I'm just really impressed at this quality for this price point. I think you're also allowed to take this figure off the base if you don't like it and display it that way, which, you know, normally I would say you shouldn't do that, but I can understand not digging that base if it's a bit too much for you, though you do lose out on the petals and the feathers, which I think is rather important to like the overall piece. But it's nice that she's not, you know, slapped on there, glued on there or whatnot, and you get to display her however you want. So good job, Spiritel. I feel like you're really winning people over these days, and I like seeing it. So this figure looks awesome, and it has a really weird name, but I think it's just saying like black and white, and then this is the white character. And I'm pretty sure that's the case because this is definitely like a chessboard, and I think she's standing on a broken knight. But yeah, this figure's awesome. I don't exactly know what's going on, like why the rollerblades, like the crazy futuristic gigantic rollerblades on a chessboard, but I don't care. It looks really sporty, much more traditionally sporty than the MX-chan, but you know, I'm probably not ordering this one, so points to Max Factory for doing what they do. I love the perspective of her hair. I don't know if it's just this photo, but I love how it's kind of like coming at me, and it's just so wide. It's just spread everywhere. Yeah, that is quite the crotch shot. I'll give it up. That is quite the photo to take in your gallery. Really cool base. I like the shattered chessboard. A little bit more interesting than just, I don't know, a normal chessboard, I guess. Yeah, this figure's really neat. Rebos has been making some really cool figures lately. Gotta love how flexible she is as well. Just not something you really see too often on these figures. Can only really think of one other. I think her name was like Ballerina something from maybe Amakuni. Maybe, I might be wrong on that, but the flexibility here definitely contributes to the sculpt, the composition, just like the overall, just like eye-catching feature of this one. It's neat, and the colors are nice. I think this is definitely one to look out for, but honestly, the price tag's pretty good for what you're getting here too, mainly because they went hard on the base, but she's also got like rollerblade weapons too, like this kind of looks like a sword or some sort of blade. So yeah, very involved. Doesn't seem like they're asking too much for it, considering prices these days, and it's got like a cool and calm, collected face. So just wins all around, really. Alright, so this is Bien from Neon Max, and I'm gonna do something a little different for this one. I'm actually not gonna talk about her. I know I have in the past, I've seen this figure before, but rather I want to show you a figure from this company that recently got released that I think will do a pretty good job of telling you whether or not you should pre-order from this company. Now, some of you may recall this figure. It's the same artist, you know, Toridamino, that did the Max Factory's MX-chan. And I like this one. I don't remember her name, but I think this figure looks lovely. It's pretty good. But when it got released, this was the end result. Now, I know the lighting is not the same. It's not a professionally lit photo, but something was lost in translation here. The plastic used for her hair and her face looks so off from the original prototype. And when you do look at the prototype, you can tell that, like, it is a semi-transparent plastic used for, like, you know, the tips of the hair, right? But it's really kind of like false advertising if this is what you're showing off, and then this is the figure that you get. And I would maybe excuse it if the face also didn't look so bad. It's kind of shiny, it looks a little bit cheap. The figure lost a bit of its, like, softness through the transition of prototype to end results. I just don't think they did a good job on this figure, and I'd be pretty upset. Now, I'm sure there are people who bought this that love this figure, and I don't want to take that away from you, but I'm allowed to have an opinion on this, and I think this doesn't look very good. So, let me go thank the poster, Erofu, for posting this photo. There's some other photos on this page as well if you want to look through them, but they're all about the same. I don't know, it's that same kind of cheapy plastic that the hair just, I don't know, I really don't like how this figure turned out, and as a result, I would not really recommend pre-ordering their figures until they turn out one that looks pretty close to the prototype, but that's just me. However, if you're in the market for a sexy lady figure that will probably deliver, how about checking out the Chen Hai Vestibule of Wonders version by Anygift? Some of you might recall that I made a community post about this figure. I think I just said something like awooga, or I did an eyes emoji or something, but I feel like that's about right. I think that's exactly how I would describe this figure. This dress can, like, barely contain her body. In fact, on the back, it doesn't. It just has, like, a butt window, and it really just exposes all. And I'm trying to find the other photo of it, but yeah, it exposes even more than just that. So pretty risque figure, if you ask me. I don't want to focus on that too much, but this Chinese dress is overall pretty gorgeous, and it's very complimentary to her body type. So I think it's good, and it's definitely a lot of a safer purchase than the Bien figure, I would assume. I gotta give Veronica another shout out. I almost forgot about her. While the price increase hurts a lot for Roy, I can kind of see it justified here, as her design is way more intricate. The almost like royal Valkyrie battle armor looks sick, and these additional photos really lets us appreciate the dress alongside it. It's such a nice shade of red chosen for the inner lining of the dress along with her leggings. This color scheme is, for lack of a better word, just based. Her face also looks a lot better now that I could see it from more than just one photo, so there goes one of my complaints from last time, so that's good. I'm not exactly sure what her weapon is. I assume it's a shield, but the flame effects cast onto it look really well done, and the pink jewel in the center of it surrounded by all that gold and fiery orange looks amazing. Sadly, this is a character I don't know, so I doubt I'll be picking it up, but she is rather impressive. I kind of forgot that Mustache just occasionally gets figures, and this one is super cheap. I guess it kind of looks cheap. I mean, you do get what you pay for these days, and I think it's fine if this figure is cheap, but the paintwork and sculpting detail really don't leave me that much to talk about. I do like this little potato thing. Like, I know she has a name, I know she's from the game, I just don't remember what her name is, but I like this little thing on the plate. It does, I don't know, look cute and also a little funny as well. Also, I'm kind of grasping at straws for this one, but I like the way they sculpted her butt. It does kind of give the impression that she's kind of scooting along on the bottom of the base. I think her face also looks good. It definitely reminds me of Mustache, so that's a pretty important feature of a figure. But yeah, just nothing that I'm super interested in, but it certainly doesn't look bad by any means. Just very standard, but it's got the art style, which I think is the most important part for this kind of figure, and Apex will probably deliver, and this will look exactly like the prototype. Bro, her legs are so big compared to her head. Like, I know this is what we gamers want, and I'm all for exaggerated body proportions at times, but this figure looks a little bit silly. She's actually pretty big at 25 centimeters despite the posture as she's leaning against that red stool. But, I mean, she's got legs for days, and the boob window looks nice, and the side boob looks nice, and it's relatively cheap, and maybe this actually is the best figure ever made. I'm kidding, but like, I feel like if they just adjusted the head a little bit, Union Creative would actually have something pretty good here. But maybe that doesn't bother you, but like, I don't know, it really stands out. I think if this was a drawing, I wouldn't care at all, but as like a 3D figure, it just sort of bothers me and I have to point it out. But yeah, that's all I really got to say about this one. Amakuni just couldn't let me have this. They just couldn't make this figure affordable at all. Because I'm the guy who's always pointing out the prices, trying to justify it, saying whether or not a figure is worth it. And now I gotta expose myself because this is one of my most desired figures. And it's 36,000 yen. And by all accounts, I shouldn't be getting this. But god damn it, I want it. This figure is so fucking good looking. Like, if you're a weirdo like me who finds themselves interested in demonic looking girls like this, then this is like a holy grail before you even knew you wanted it. Above all else, her face is like out of this world good. Those crazy eyes, that mouth with her fangs and her tongue sticking out, that expression, that haughty, devilish look on her face really is all you needed to want this figure. But the composition of this figure is also just such a treat. It's a throne of bats, very cute spherical bats. And there's also a rad looking rock throne formation base alongside it. It's a bit hard to tell exactly what's going on unless you like really had a 360 angle of this figure, but I'm just gonna go with what I can tell here. She's also got some sort of cape that she's wearing, which you could see just like kind of splaying all over the place around her. But yeah, it doesn't really matter where the rocks start and the cape ends because she's clearly using the bats as like resting points for her body, with the one on her foot getting the royal treatment. Because it's Bomber Girl, Aqua's also wearing some fairly revealing vampire negligee, and of course she's got to show off her womb tattoo through the cutout. But I think the final piece of this figure, the part of it that really pulls everything together and makes it as phenomenal as I believe it is the amount of mileage they're getting out of the color blue. Because it's almost all blue, but there's just so many different shades and tones of blue here that it all works brilliantly in the end. I waited a long time for this figure to go up, and I am prepared to sell some figures if I must in order to get her. But god damn it, why do they have to make this so hard? Why couldn't it just be like 30,000? I would have been so on board with that. I'm just lost in the Bomber Girl sauce, I guess. I don't know. I guess I'm a simp. Whatever. Moving on. Sometimes it's all about your outlook though, like it ain't so bad. My figure cost 36,000 yen, well this one costs 40,000 yen. I'm happier now. You'd think I would want this Sakuya figure, like it would be on my radar, but surprisingly, not really. It's certainly refreshing to see a company tackle her abilities in such a grand way, and part of me wants to add a more like traditional Sakuya to my collection in her like typical maid getup, because I only have the Toho Vania one, but I kind of fear this figure. The Venus flytrap of an effect piece just looks like it would break if I sneezed in my room, and it needs multiple support points too, which I don't really like. It is an ambitious attempt at the 1000 dagger attack though, so I'll give it up. The pocket watch base is simply sublime, however. The colors, the gears, the shape of the chain like traveling around her body, it is very cool stuff. Love that she's holding 3 knives in each hand like she's Kire from Fates as well. You know, I'd probably take a chance on this one if the price was better, but it ain't, so I won't. If Good Smile Company's Anya and Your figure isn't really your thing, then perhaps Anya and Bond will do the trick. The whole Bond arc of the anime really was a highlight for me, maybe because most of the anime was kind of like one-off episodes, but I am very easily manipulated when it comes to liking dogs in media, and Bond is just, I don't know, he's great. He's just so easy to like, all dapper with his bow tie, and his old man face just, I don't know, gets me every time. This figure should be a lesson though in why like Furyu just doesn't deserve your money. Like their version of Anya cost about 400 yen less than this one, and it's not even comparable. Even the bases, which are essentially the same thing, like Kotobukiya's version has like dirt or weathering or something between the bricks. It just looks a little bit better for such a small detail of the figure. This is also a rare instance where Kotobukiya is just throwing in a bonus faceplate without like pre-ordering from their store. Though I think there is a third faceplate if you do decide to go out of your way to get the pre-order bonus, but both faceplates in the standard release are really good in my opinion. I think it's important to note how both faceplates really do a good job fitting in with the theme of this figure. Like, both are convincing if she were to be riding Bon, right? Here she's super happy and expressive, whereas the other one is a bit more determined, like she's on a mission and she's got to complete it, right? I think they're both really good. I gassed up Good Smile Company's release for good reason, but I think this one stands alongside it, and it's way cheaper too. Totally different vibes as well, and likely what more people would expect from a Spy Family figure, so I could easily recommend this one as well. Altria was pretty sneaky with this one, first showing off Meltrius without the penguin, kind of making it seem like there was a choice between the Good Smile Company version and Alter's. But in comes this good boy just sliding in with his snazzy bow tie to steal the show, and it really makes this one the one to get. They even hid the fact that she comes with sunglasses with this release, and I think that's pretty neat. I like the look. This is definitely a character design not for everybody though. Like, those twig legs really are an acquired taste, but she looks so cheeky and adorable with this expression, and that penguin jacket, it kind of goes hard. I like it a lot. There's way more detailing in the jacket too than I recall when it was like a prototype. But I guess that goes to show you how important the paint phase is when we first see these figures. I also always find myself looking at her hair each time I open this page too. There's something about that slight spiraling. It's like a bit hypnotic to me. I don't know why, but I really like the sculpt of her hair. From the back, we do get a butt shot, and there's some nice curvature and definition back there. And it's sort of funny how the penguin jacket has a tail, which just naturally makes this figure a little bit lewder as a result. Anyway, this Meltrius figure is definitely adorable and also kind of goofy at the same time, but it's absolutely a standout of this video. And I think that's going to do it for the December and kind of November pre-order roundup. But before we go, I got two things I gotta say. One, and I wish I had a graphic for this, but I don't, and I don't got time to make it, but I want to do Zuko's recommendations for this video. Just something I've been meaning to do, because I say a lot of these figures are nice, but what are the ones that I like the most? And I'm gonna count down the top 5 to me. Not objectively the best, just the ones that resonated with me the most. So number 5 is Anya and Yor from Good Smile Company. Number 4 is Ariel from Soma Spider So What. 3 is the Vibrastar Elf. I just really like that figure. 2 is MX-chan, which you probably saw coming. And number 1, of course, is Aqua from Bomber Girl. I have a problem. But anyway, the other point I want to talk about is something that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. So I want to do a 2022 favorites, wrap up, etc. But I don't want to necessarily make this video all about myself. So I was thinking, I'm going to talk about my favorite figures that I picked up. But what about you guys? If you want to get involved, if you want to maybe make an appearance in this video that I'm planning to make, and if no one responds, then that video might not be made, so I'm pressuring you now. Let me know what your favorite figure of the year was, and you have a chance to show up, and I'll talk about your comment. You could say whatever the hell you want about it. Just give me 1 or 2 of your favorite figures that you picked up, and I'll read them off. I'll try and get to everybody if there is a reasonable amount of comments, but I guess no promises if I don't get to everybody, and I apologize. But yeah, I just thought it would be fun to involve other people in this because not everybody wants to be a YouTuber, but I think it would be fun to just see what other people are saying and what they like. Anyway, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. This video is still over an hour long without talking about the Nendoroid, so I think I did enough. So yeah, if you want to support the channel, just, like the video, leave me a comment. I have affiliate links now. I talked about Hobby Link Japan, but now I have one for CD Japan. So if you want to shop there too, you can use my link, and you'll just support the channel that way at no extra cost. And I think that would be pretty cool. But until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.